Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live. I am your humble host and grammar detective, Paul Duke. We are streaming to you live from Vancouver, Canada, around the world on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, Telegram, and other platforms. So wherever you are in the world, whichever platform you're on, guys, welcome to my show. On this show, I answer your English mystery questions. If you have questions about grammar, send me an email at hardboiledenglish, let me find it, hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com, and send me a 1-minute video clip asking your question, and I'll build a show around it. Tonight we have a fantastic question sent to me by Keita of the YouTube channel Tight Crony, and you can find him on YouTube at Tight Crony on YouTube. As we get started, guys, I'd like to hear from you, so please say hello in the comment thread and tell me what country you're watching from. Are you, in your country, do you have this Black Friday thing? In Canada, today is called Black Friday. For some reason, everyone goes bananas. It lines up to buy products at stores. I guess they're on a discount. No, thank you. I'll stay home and talk to you guys. So far we have a long-time and regular viewer, Chris Derboven from Belgium. Welcome, Chris. We have Robin Cardillo. I believe Robin's watching from Toronto. Who else? We have Sebastiano Longo. Welcome to the show, Sebastiano. What country are you in? Where are you watching from, Sebastiano? Who else is with us? Okay, we also have Hadi, Meta Buddy. What country are you watching from, Hadi? We have our longtime friend Wilson from Ecuador. Welcome, Wilson. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Who else is with us? We'll get to our English mystery shortly, but first, I'd like to say hello to everyone and see how you're doing. Sebastiano is watching from Italy. Welcome, Italy. We also have Ms. Berta Osorio from Colombia. Welcome, Berta. Thank you for joining us. Did any of you guys go shopping today? Was it Black Friday in your neighborhood or your city? It was Black Friday in my city, and I stayed away from stores today. No, thank you. People go crazy on a day like today. No, thank you. Not interested. That's why I like Amazon. Let them deliver it right to your home. Also joining us is Tinka from Slovakia. Welcome, Tinka. Hadi says, I'm from India. Okay, great. Welcome, welcome. Chris says we have Black Friday, but not as strong as in the USA. Yeah, USA and Canada, they're crazy with Black Friday. We also have Fuad joining us from Morocco. Welcome, welcome. Isn't this great, guys? We've got people from all over the world watching. It's my favorite thing about this show. In fact, it's why I do it. It gives me a chance every week to put on my detective costume and meet you guys from around the world and hopefully help you understand grammar a little bit better. That's why I do this. Who else is joining us, guys? Who else is out there? Don't be shy. Say hello. Well, in the meantime, guys, while we wait for some of our friends to join us, and before I get started with our English Mystery of the Week, I have a question for you. As I go forward with this show and plan other projects, I want to know from you guys, what area of English grammar would you like to learn more about? Do you need help with verb tense, prepositions, adverbs? Tell me some parts of grammar that you struggle with. Fawad, you are welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. I can't say I've ever been to Morocco, but someday I'd love to go there. I have eaten Moroccan food at a Moroccan restaurant, and I love the food. So I'm sure it's even better in Morocco. So I will come and visit Morocco someday. Same with India. Never been to India. Same with Slovakia. Italy, I've never been to Italy. Or Ecuador. Gosh, I've traveled nowhere. I guess I spend all my time solving English mysteries right here in Canada. I don't have time to travel someday. Okay, guys, any thoughts about that? What area or part of English grammar would you like to learn more about? Tonight I'm going to get some help from my Detective Rabbit. Detective Rabbit sometimes helps me out. And tonight might be one of those nights that I need a little help. Okay, so Fuad says, sometimes I feel confused about tenses. Okay, good. You're not alone, Fuad. A lot of students and learners and teachers struggle with verb tenses. We can certainly look into that. Sebastiano says it's Black Friday and I made purchases with 50% discount at a clothing store. Great. Well, I hope you didn't have to line up too long. Sounds like a great idea, Fuad. I'll meet you in Morocco. Anyone else have a thought about aspects or elements of grammar you'd like to learn more about? What do you think? What part of grammar confuses you or gives you a headache, gives you trouble? Maybe you don't have any trouble with English grammar. Maybe you're very comfortable with it. That's good too. I mean, that's the goal, right? That's what we want. Okay, we also have my friend Mizanur. Mizanur from Bangladesh is with us. Welcome to the show, Mizanur. Welcome to the show, Hardboiled English Live. Here's Wilson. Wilson says probably the passive voice in advance and tenses in advance live. Past perfect, yeah, past perfect can be tricky. Passive voice. One thing I would say, Wilson, and we'll definitely discuss this at some point. In fact, Wilson, if you want to send me a video question, I'll make an English mystery episode about it. Passive voice is not something you need to use all the time. It's important to learn it, and it does have some uses, but it's usually not the best option. That's what I would say to begin with. But we need to learn it, and we need to use it sometimes. But if you have a specific question, Wilson, I'd be happy to answer it on the show. If you can send me a video clip, just make a simple video with your phone and send it to me. And again, guys, if you want to send me your English question, email it directly to hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com and we'll answer it on the show. Okay? Okay. Chris says, I did something different for Black Friday. I joined the Grey Wave from Dototech Vancouver. I'm not familiar with that. I think I know who Dototech is. He's a YouTube guy who presents new technology and new devices. But I'm not sure what Grey Wave is. Was that a live stream, Chris? Sounds interesting. Any thoughts, guys? Any other other thoughts about what area of grammar you'd like to learn more about? Okay. If that's the case, maybe it's time to get to our English mystery. Why don't we do that? Okay, let me get set up here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you in advance to Mr. Keita of Tight Crony YouTube channel for sending us in a nice English mystery, and we'll get to it in a moment. I think I've got it already, yeah. Okay, so let's get to it. Here is today's English mystery. Let's get the ball rolling.
Hey, teacher Paul. Could you please say that again? Please, this.
But this time,
slower or slowly.
yeah. So what's the difference between slower and slowly? So could you please say that again, but this time slower or
slowly.
what do we do? Please help us.
Great. Thank you for that question, Keita. And it's an excellent question. So I've got it prepared on the board. I've got his sentence set up here. Let me see if it's nice and tidy. Maybe not. So Keita is wondering about this sentence. His sentence was, could you please say that again, but this time slower or slowly? He's confused about which of these words to use. Now, if we look at this sentence entirely, we can see, first of all, that it's a question. It's a request. He's asking somebody this question as a request. It sounds like somebody, perhaps a native English speaker, said something to him and he didn't quite catch it and he wants them to repeat that. Okay. So, in order to investigate the hidden grammar structure behind it, I always recommend identifying the parts of speech and the sentence elements, okay? What do we have here? Well, we have a modal. And when the modal begins the sentence before the subject, that's how we form a question with a modal. Could you? Please say, there's our verb. That is our object, which reminds me that is the thing the person said to Keita first. So maybe they said something like, where are you going? And Keita wants them to repeat that whole sentence. So that is the object, but it is already been spoken. So it's referring back to something that was said. Okay? And then we have conjunction here. One of the fanboys. And it's connecting another clause. So over here we have another clause, right? And the comma makes that clear. We have clause number 1, clause number 2. So by the time we get to here, Keita is confused about which word to use, which form. Could you please say that again, but this time slower or slowly? Now, when you're confused about a word, any word, slower or slowly, and you're not sure which one to use, I highly recommend going to the basics. And the basics means the dictionary. The dictionary can tell you a lot of information, including what form of part of speech it is, what word form it is, whether it's countable or not countable if it's a noun, whether it's transitive or intransitive if it's a verb. The dictionary has a lot of information, okay? Let's take a look at the dictionary definition of these two words. Okay, now when you look in the dictionary for slower, the first thing you're going to see is slow. That is the basic adjective form of the word, okay? Slow is an adjective. What does it mean? It means something is not moving, acting, or done quickly, or something is taking a long time, it's not fast. And then over here we have the word slower. And it indicates that slower is the comparative form. Okay? What's a comparative? We need to think about that. And it also indicates the superlative, which means something different than a comparative. Superlative means the number one most slow in this case. Comparative is when you compare one noun to another in terms of their slowness. And then down below we have the word slowly, right? Slowly. And it says slowly is an adverb. What do adverbs do? Well, generally, they describe a verb or an action. They can also intensify or detensify an adjective. They can also modify another adverb. But their primary function is to describe verbs. Okay? In fact, the definition says slowly means to do, that's an action, to do something at a slow speed, not quickly. So both of these involve the idea or the meaning that something is not fast. It is slow, right? So the meaning is related. The meaning is similar. Now that might seem obvious, but sometimes two word forms don't share a meaning. In this case, the meaning is similar. It's related to speed or lack of speed. But the key here is slow and slower and slowly. One is an adjective, one's an adverb. That's crucial. Now, let's build on this idea. It's a comparative. Slower is a comparative. And a comparative requires two nouns. Okay? Let me find two nouns for you. Here's one noun, rabbit. Here is another noun, rabbit. Both of them are nouns. Okay, they're both rabbits, same noun. But if we want to compare them, we can describe them with adjectives. And we can say this bunny, this rabbit, is large. This rabbit is small. But that gives them separate descriptions, large, small. But we can also compare them with the same idea. Let's say this rabbit is larger than this rabbit. Excuse me. Or this rabbit is smaller than this rabbit. So you can take the adjective, the base adjective, large, big, or small, or short, and you can compare them using that adjective. That's the comparative form. If we use the adjective big, this rabbit is bigger than this rabbit. Okay, we're comparing two rabbits. Or if we take the adjective small, this rabbit is smaller than this rabbit. And you'll notice that when I'm using this rabbit, I start with this rabbit as the subject. White rabbit, subject, is larger than yellow rabbit. So sentence position is important there. Or we start with this one as the subject. Yellow rabbit is smaller than big rabbit. Okay? That's the comparative form. And in order to use it, you need to be talking about two nouns. In this case, two rabbits. Where does that leave us in this sentence? Let's take a look. Could you please say that again, but this time slower? If we go with this, that means we're comparing two nouns. Are we? Could you please say that again, but this time slower? Well, what's the first noun? Because if that's an adjective, it needs to be describing a noun. For example, he owns a slow car. Slow car. Slow describes the car. But if we said slower car than what? That's one noun. We need a second noun to use slower. we would have to say owns a slower car than his sister. Okay, there's your number 2 noun. So he owns a slower car than his sister. His sister owns a fast car. So his is slower than his sister's. But we don't have 2 nouns up here. So we have a problem with slower. And usually when you have an adjective, it's followed by the noun. Here, there's no noun. So maybe that's a problem. Okay? Now, what about slowly? The dictionary graphic told us that slowly is the adverb form. Well, if we're using an adverb, we need to be describing a verb. For example, his car drives. Actually, let's use a different verb. Let's say his car moves. His car moves, right? Clearly that's a verb. Subject, verb. If we don't want more information here, his car moves. How? We can put an adverb. We can put slowly. His car moves. How? Slowly. Adverb of manner describing the verb. So, in our sentence, if this is the adverb, where's the verb? What is moving slowly here? In this clause, we have clause number 1 and clause number 2. Where does it end? Here. But this time slowly. Time is a noun. It's a problem, right? There's no verb here. So what's going on? Well, let me tell you something. Based on this evidence, I'll tell you what I think is happening. I suspect that we have a missing word, or 2, or 3. Something is missing here. But this time, what? What does Keita want to happen this time, this second time? And what could move slower or slowly? Let's take a second look here. Could you please say that again? Well, that means that somebody told Keita something, right? And he wants them to say that thing again. But he didn't catch it, so he wants it in a different speed that he can catch it more easily. So it seems that that must be repeated, right? How? Well, it sounds like Keita wants this to happen again. He wants someone to say that again. Say that one more time. A second time. So it's the same action a second time. And as we've talked about many times in our show, often, especially in speech, we drop repeated ideas represented by repeated words. If the other person understands the context and the idea, we don't need to say it again. But to understand the grammar here, I want to expand this sentence back to its full meaning so you can see what's happening clearly. Okay? Could you please say that again? But this time, say it. Okay? Could you please say that again? Here's the first verb. Again. Say that again. But this time, say, there's the verb again. Say it. How? What do you think? I think, now that we have this here, it's pretty clear, we need the adverb. Because Keita is asking them to repeat the action in a different way, in a slow way, right? Adverbs, let's go back to that definition. To do something at a slow speed, not quickly, right? So he's asking this person to say the same expression again, but this time say it slowly, okay? And you could even add another word like more slowly, right? More slowly than last time, or than the first time. So the full idea here, if we really stretch out the idea and put back the repeated words and ideas, is, could you please say that again, but this time say it more slowly than the first time, right? There you go. This also is a comparative idea, right? Except we're not using slower, we're using more, and that's another comparative. If we use this, look what we're doing. Yes, we're comparing the first time to the second time. The problem is, slower is now modifying the verb. But we learned that slower is an adjective, right? That's not how this works. Slower needs to be comparing nouns. For example, his, he has a slower car than his sister. Slower car. Car is a noun. That's the comparative adjective, right? Slower car. But here we're trying to tell this person to say something slowly, okay? So I think, Keita, that the correct choice is slowly, the adverb. Because you are asking them to please say that again. Do that again. You're asking them to repeat an action. And they want to know how to repeat that action, how to do it this time differently. That's why you need an adverb, to tell them how you want this action to be different. In a different way, I want this action slowly. So Keita, you should say, could you please say that again, but this time, slowly. And you can remove that. This time, slowly. Okay? Or you can add this, which actually ends up sounding a little more polite, because you're not saying slowly as an absolute measurement, you're saying it more slowly. Okay? Could you please say that again, but this time more slowly than you did the first time? Okay, does that make sense, guys, to you? What do you think? See, here's an example. He wants me to speak slower. The problem is right here we have speak, which is a verb, and you're using an adjective to modify a verb. That doesn't work. Slower is an adjective. It needs to modify a noun. So he wants me to speak slowly. That's how it should read. Because slower is an adjective. According to the dictionary, slower is the comparative adjective, and adjectives describe nouns. They do not describe actions. So in this example, speak is the verb, slower is an adjective, so it's not modifying, it can't modify a verb. Slowly modifies the verb. Could you please say that again, but this time slowly? Good, because Keita is asking the person to say slowly. Say it again slowly, to speak slowly, right? He wants me to speak slowly. Exactly. Remember, the verb is speak. So if we're going to adjust the meaning of the verb or describe it or change it, we need an adverb, not an adjective. Slower should be used to describe nouns, like Paul is a slower guy than someone else. I don't know. Or this is a larger rabbit than this one, right? Larger rabbit, smaller rabbit. These are comparative adjectives, but they have to describe nouns. Shorter bunny, whiter bunny than this one. This one is yellower than this one. This one is smaller than this one. This one's bigger, larger. So the comparative, like any adjective, must be describing a noun, right? And adverbs, especially adverbs of manner with the ly, describe actions, how we do things, right? He speaks slowly. He speaks quickly. He speaks loudly. He speaks softly, right? So the key in this sentence is figuring out what's happening the second time, right? What is this second action that's missing? Because here we have no verb, but the verb is implied because it's repeated. Please say that again, but this time say it slowly, right? That's the verb that's implied. Keita wants this person to repeat saying it, but repeat it in a different way. What way? Slowly. Adverb of manner. So this example is interesting because he wants me to speak slower. Still doesn't work because slower is an adjective. And here it's describing the verb speak. That can't work. However, this is also missing some words. So if we reintroduce the words, we can see how this could work. He wants me to speak in a slower way than the usual way. So this is really the meaning of a sentence structure like this. He wants me to speak in a slower way, noun, than the usual. That's also an adjective. Way is also a noun. So what we're saying when we say a sentence like that, he wants me to speak slower than usual, we're not saying he wants me to speak slower. That's not possible grammatically because that is an adjective and it can't tell us how to speak. It can't describe the way we do an action. It's not an adverb, right? If you want to describe the way the person speaks, you need slowly. But we can imply that slower way, speak in a slower way than the usual way or the usual style, the usual manner, right? So this is where we can use that. Now, this sentence can work if you're with a native speaker who understands what's implied, what's missing in the meaning. But a language learner may not. So I think this kind of structure can be confusing for a language learner because they're not starting from a place of full meaning, whereas a native speaker would have grown up maybe learning this full sentence and then later forgetting it and being able to imply it. Okay. Got some great comments here. Thank you. Yeah, Tinka said he needs the person to speak slowly. We're missing the to. To speak slowly. Good. You know, there's in the media, which in large part originates in places like the United States, there is a trend where a lot of Americans do not use adverbs at all. They construct sentences with adjectives. For example, you might hear in the World Cup news, they played wonderful or amazing. We had this in a question earlier in the month. They played fantastic. Problem is, these are adjectives, and adjectives describe forward to a noun, right? Fantastic game, fantastic or amazing player, wonderful stadium. We need a noun. Problem is, in a sentence like that, we don't have a noun here. So these adjectives are being used as adverbs. I hear this all the time in the media. They played wonderful. They can't think of another example. But it's a problem, because if we use adjectives for everything, and we don't learn our adverbs, and we don't use adverbs to describe verbs, something in the meaning is lost. We're not articulating two different meanings. When we use an adjective, we're describing a noun. We're explaining there's a description to the noun. If we use them for verbs as well, we're not making anything different. What's the difference between play wonderful and wonderful game or wonderful movie? Now there's no difference. And I think that's a problem, because that means there's no difference in the meanings. And we know there are. He played great. He played a great game. Yeah. So I'm not sure offhand. I'd have to check the old dictionary. Maybe one of you guys can check the dictionary online. Is great, I know it's an adjective. It may also be an adverb. Some words keep the same form between adverb and adjective. Let me just check that out. So according to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, great, let me pull that up again. Great is used as an adverb. Oops. He played great is used informally or in slang as an adverb. It's really not an adverb. It's really an adjective. It really should be like this. He played a great game. Or use an adverb, as Tinka says. They played wonderfully, right? Or even greatly. They played amazingly well, right? Here's a good example where we have amazingly, it's an adverb of manner, describing another adverb, well, right? Now you could actually say they played amazingly, an amazingly great game. So I think it's not a question of are you being correct or not. I never want to explain English grammar as a matter of correct or incorrect. It's not the point. The point is we need different structures to express different meanings. And the same with word forms. We need adverbs and adjectives to do different things. Otherwise, we can't express two different ideas, right? We need a variety of structures and word forms so that our meanings are unique and specific. So there is a big difference between describing how they played and describing the game they played, right? So if we go back to this sentence, they played wonderful. They played, let's say, they played let's just say well. That's an adverb describing how they played. If we have a sentence, they played a great game, those two sentences, although they may be talking about something similar, the game and the players, they're telling us a different idea. This one is telling us how they played, right? It's about the players and what they did. It's focusing our idea on the action. They played. How? Well. That's a very different idea than they played a great game. Here, the focus is on the object, the game, right? The focus is not on the players and the subject. The focus is on the game. The game was great. They played in it, right? They played a great game. That is a very different idea than this one. And that's why we need two different grammars and different words to use, because they each express something very specific. So I'm not a fan of telling students and learners that you need the correct form, slower, slowly, or even slow. It's not about correct or incorrect so you can pass the test. I don't care about tests. I really don't. For me, the importance of grammar is to be able to convey separate, distinct, and different meanings. When I was young, I watched a movie and there was a great line in it I never forgot. There was a moment, I believe the film is called The Last Emperor, Bernardo Bertolucci's great film, I believe from 1986, 88 maybe, The Last Emperor. It's about the last emperor of China, Pu Yi. And Pu Yi had a British English tutor who came to China, to the Forbidden City, and taught him. And I'll never forget the line of dialogue when I first saw the movie. One of the first lessons he gives the emperor in the movie is a gentleman, he's British, he's a colonialist, all that kind of stuff, but he has this idea. He says, Pu Yi, a gentleman must learn to say what he means. Otherwise, he will never mean what he says. I've never forgotten that. Now, that was an old story, and it was a story from 1914. So in those days, language was gendered like that. So let's forget about that. Let's not judge it. It's an earlier time. The instructor would have spoken like that to the emperor, a gentleman, blah, blah, blah. But the same applies to women or anyone, right? The idea is that you need to be able to build your language skill so that you can communicate the specific meaning that you have in your mind. If you can't do that, the things you say won't have meaning. For me, that's an incredibly powerful idea. It's actually one of the reasons I became an English teacher. I wanted to help students do that, to be able to learn the tools you need to articulate your ideas so that when you speak, those ideas mean something that you intend. Because if you can't control the language to express your idea, you might end up expressing a different idea altogether, right? You don't want that. You want to control the language to communicate your idea, your specific meaning. Did you confirm this quote on the spot? This conjunction is important and mean what he says. I remember it being, must be able to say what he means so that he means what he says. Because it's a linguistic matter. It's a matter of having the language skill to say what you mean. And for me, that's an important idea. It's a really important idea. That's the importance of English grammar, for example, to me. It's so that we can articulate our meaning clearly, precisely, and specifically. Yeah, so let me write it. It's our quote of the day. And I'm not sure if it's historically accurate that Puyi's tutor said that to him, but it's certainly a great piece of dialogue. A gentleman must be able to say what he means, or he will never mean what he says. That's how I remember it. Anyways, that's how I've interpreted it and used it, right? A gentleman must be able, so he must have the skills, or she must have the skills, to say what he means, what he thinks, what he intends. If not, he will never mean what he says. His words, the things he says, will have little meaning, or the wrong meaning, right? For me, this is the purpose of learning grammar. It's not to pass a test. It's not so you can speak proper English or improper English or cool slang English. The point is to be able to communicate. But communicate the precise idea you have, because ideas are complex. And especially as you get older and you learn more about the world, you learn how much more complex it is than you thought it was when you were young. You want to be able to communicate your ideas with all the complexities precisely. And that's not just for academics, right? For example, in Keita's sentence, I'm not sure what the original person said to him, but there are 100 ways to ask them to repeat. Keita chose this one, which is good. It's polite, could you please? But he also could have said it in a way that didn't sound polite. For example, he also could have said it in a way that didn't get the result he wanted, which is a repeated action. So I really believe this is our goal when we're learning English grammar or any language grammar, is learning the structures required to convey a specific idea or a specific meaning, and that it's different than this meaning, right? Like the idea of the game. Are we talking about the players and how they played? Or are you talking about the game itself? Which is the focus, right? So, guys, I want you to think about that, because it's sort of at the root of the way I teach and how I teach, and the emphasis I have on grammar. When I call myself the grammar detective, what I want to do is investigate these sentences in the real world so we can understand what they're doing. Why? So we can understand the meaning that they're expressing, right? And hopefully understand how to express that meaning more precisely, so that both you understand the learner, but the people you're talking to understand also, right? That's what we want. We want people to understand us. And we want to understand what they say. So, you need to understand grammar. There are people who believe you don't need to learn grammar. I have a problem with that, because if you don't learn it, somehow, there's a lot of ways to learn it. But if you don't develop an understanding of it, one, you may not understand what people are saying. And two, you may not be able to say what you really mean, right? Now, it's not just grammar. It's also vocabulary, it's tone, it's body language. There's a lot of things that go into communicating, but grammar is one of those things. Thank you for always breaking it down in such a simple way. Even as an English teacher, I'm always learning how to express myself better. I appreciate that, but so am I. We are always learning to do this. There's never an end to learning, even if you are a teacher. And I happen to know On the Spot Language, our friend of the show, Anish, he's a great teacher. But like he says, he's still learning. I'm still learning, right? Every day I'm working with students and I'm learning something new or researching something on their behalf so I can give them some more information. But also, I have to be honest with you guys, I grew up a pretty reserved and quiet kid and was not very comfortable speaking to people. That changed as I got older because sometimes you kind of have no choice. You have to work with people and communicate with people. And I grew more comfortable with it. But I have to say, I'm still a little bit like that. I'm still a little bit awkward when I speak to people. I always think afterwards, oh, I wish I had said that differently. Or I used the wrong word, or my grammar structure was off when I said that. So I'm always sort of reflecting and learning from the things I've said and the communications with people I've had. We're always learning, right? Tinka says, very nice quote. Thank you. Great. Any questions about this, guys? I saw some really good comments here. If not, speaking of grammar, I would like to introduce this week's book recommendation. I began doing this a few times, some shows back, but I'd like to do it a little more frequently and regularly. And today, I'm going to pull a book from the shelf. And this segment I like to call So guys, today's book recommendation is the following. As we've just discussed, I think grammar is important to learn. It's also important to teach in whatever way you choose. Now, not every teacher has to teach grammar. Some teachers focus on pronunciation, others focus on communication. But if you are a grammar teacher or a beginner level teacher who's, because of the school you work at, you are compelled to teach grammar, I have an excellent book recommendation for you. And this is specifically for teachers, although any learner can benefit from it. This is one of my favorite books for teachers. It's called Grammar for English Language Teachers by Martin Perrott. Martin Perrott. This is an excellent book if you're a beginner teacher, if you're just entering the English teaching business, or if you're a veteran of it. This is a great book because it has clear and easy to read text. It has graphics that are easy to see and understand. Tons of examples. It goes through all kinds of commonly misunderstood grammar points. It has charts you can use. You can build your own charts based off them. One of the things I really like about it is every chapter has sections where they begin with, for example, modals. They begin with key considerations. So tips for the teacher to be very careful with. Things they should really focus on when they teach, for example, modals. Every chapter also goes through, what are they, how to use them, lots of examples. But very importantly, they also have for every point, they have common problems that students face, right? So this book is designed for English second language teachers, and it's got tips about the common problems their learners face and the common problems that teacher will probably encounter when they teach this stuff. So, fabulous grammar book. Great if you're a beginning teacher and you really need one book to help you figure out your method of teaching grammar. This is an excellent text. If you're a learner and you want another view of grammar, it's also an excellent text. One of the challenges teachers face, you see it here when I'm doing this live, I sometimes can't think of an example offhand. A book like this has tons of examples, and you can take them and put them on the board. You can make exercises out of them. There are also examples within different contexts. So it's a very comprehensive book, There's a chapter for all the basic grammar structures and forms you need to teach. And a great book. Highly recommend it. Grammar for English Teachers. And I will put a link down below in the description if you want to buy a copy. You can pick it up at that link on Amazon. Otherwise, find it in your bookstore or hopefully in a translated version. But fantastic book. So that's my book recommendation for today. What do you think, Rabbit? Yeah, great book, Paul. Yeah, sure. Well, guys, I think we're all just about out of time. So I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. Oh, thank you so much, Teacher Paul, for answering our English learners question on your live show today. It's my pleasure. Guys, I also want to mention that I've been recording a podcast once a month with two other writing coaches from the UK, Philip and Pete. And just this morning, we recorded our most recent episode. So have a look out for Trouble with Writing podcast. It's available on Spotify. There's a video version on YouTube you can get. That's our podcast. Have a lot of fun making it. These two guys are very, very skilled and accomplished in their areas of writing coaching. Pete focuses on helping journalists, typically in Latin American countries. Phil focuses on helping creative writers and also copywriters. And as you know, I work a lot with academic students. So keep your eye out for that. Also, if you've never seen it, and I realized this not long ago that a lot of you have never seen my web series, English Weirdness. English Weirdness is a series I made with my students from a language school I used to work at. And each episode is 30 minutes long and explores a grammar topic in depth with animations, little dramatizations, little stories, and hopefully a detailed analysis of that grammar point. Okay, so check that out on my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Also, guys, if you have an English mystery you'd like me to address on the show, email me a video clip, generally less than 1 minute would be nice. Email it to hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com, or if we're connected on social media elsewhere, you can connect with me there and send it to me. What else do we need to cover here? Well, gosh, if you haven't already, please check out my YouTube channel, The Grammar Detective, @The Grammar Detective on YouTube, and please subscribe. That way you'll get notifications for all of these live shows and other projects. Okay? You can find me across social media, @HardboiledEnglish, @The Grammar Detective, wherever you are in the Hardboiled English community. Okay? I just want to catch up, see if I missed anyone. So Wilson's asking about that. Could you please say that again, but this time slowly? Yes. And the sentence is slowly is modifying the verb say when slowly stands itself because it's separated by a comma, right? Well, the comma separates two clauses. And the second clause, the verb is implied, Wilson, so we don't have to repeat. So the verb is actually not in the clause. It's sort of doubling this one and implying that this time I want you to say it slowly. So that's what's happening here, and that's why the adverb needs to be there. It's not modifying time, time's a noun. It's not modifying this. It's not modifying but. It's not this. It's modifying the action that we want to repeat. We want them to say it again, but say it slowly again, okay? And this is what happens in speech. Sometimes we drop words, right? And that's why it can be confusing for a learner, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's about all the time we have. It's time for me to go and eat my dinner. So, wherever you are in the world, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Until I see you next time, I wish you all the best. Keep learning English. Study, train, whatever you do to improve your English, keep at it. Never give up. Until I see you next Friday, guys, take care of yourselves and stay cool. Thanks for watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hard Boiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.